6 at the Mill and Mine.
Hey buddy, how you doing?
Has anybody not been before? All right, so what you're about to see was started in Tokyo, Japan by some architects called Klein Ditham Architecture, and they created a presentation format that is 20 by 20, 20 images, 20 seconds per image to tell your story. And tonight, that is what you'll see. We have some thank yous to give, as we always do. First, we want to thank our presenters. This event is always only as good as our presenters are. So presenters, thank you for telling us your stories. We want to thank the Mill and Mine for giving us this wonderful room for this great town hall. Trisha Bateman created our poster for this one. Trisha, thank you so much for this creative poster. And then finally tonight we have Eric Thompson taking photographs so that we can tell people about this in the future on the interwebs. Next we want to thank our curators. So we are a team of 10 curators right now, all volunteers. We meet once a month for 1 hour at a bar to plan this event. So thank you very much to these wonderful curators. All right, so tonight's format, we're gonna have 3 presentations, then we'll have an intermission, we'll have 3 more, a second intermission, and then we'll have 2 presenters. That will be the format. We ask if you have your mobile phone with you that you put it on silent, and if you wanna have a conversation, there's a great courtyard outside to do it. Show our presenters the respect they deserve, so thank you all very much. And with that, I think we're ready to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, all right. I was waiting for that countdown. Are y'all ready? Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. Let's go, let's go. Tonight, whether you knew it or not, you are at a table, metaphorically speaking. You have chairs, you have your seat. And so tonight, we are at a kind of dinner party where conversations are started, moments are made. So my name is Kevin Green. These days I live by a mission and a mantra. It's to elevate every day or move the needle 1%. This phrasing came to me years back. As a personal chef, I was unpacking groceries for a dinner party, and the client said, "Hey chef," she said, "where's the foie?" I was like, "Oh, it's not on the menu." She's like, "That's everyday ingredients." And I was like, "Yes, it is." So I spent 17 years in the culinary world as a professional chef, a culinary educator, public speaker, and a competitor on Food Network's Job. So yeah, come on with that. So here's what I know. That crafting and curating moments for others around a table, there's one thing that tables do, and that is tables talk, y'all. And tonight, we're talking about our tables. Does that sound good? So for me, my early tables, they were like family meals, they were church pews, and they were childhood classrooms. These tables were built not by me, but like set for me, and they never really felt like Stephen Pressfield's authentic swing, you know, Bagger Vance, right? And so I kind of had to find my own table at some point. My first adult table, Nashville, Tennessee's Hermitage Hotel. You ever been there? That was pretty weak. So I had just graduated college with that new degree, thought I wanted to be a chef. I love the art of the kitchen, the sport of the kitchen, the artistry of food, and working with my hands. But I read Bourdain's text, and it showed me what I did not want for my future. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Can I get an amen? So I was like, hold the phone, because here I am, 16 years in debt, typical high school student, all the A's, the awards, and accolades, but what were they for? Tens of thousands of dollars in debt, asking myself, where did I go wrong? And who led me the heck astray, right? It's not just me, come on, we're at a table, right? So fast forward a few years, I'm at a new table. It's a corporate table. Talk about a fit. We got the health benefits, we got the 401ks, we got the team outing in the first month, and we're at the lake. Light years away from working the line in Nashville. Fast forward a few years, the CEO decides, you know what, it's time to step down. And so went things with it. So I did the one thing my dad said to never do, y'all. He said, don't quit a job without a job, be responsible. Hashtag responsibility. I quit without a job. I jumped without that proverbial parachute. A few years later, after starting a business and being successful, I went to sit at another table. This table was the table of education. I became a teacher, y'all. Or as I prefer to say it, which garners more respect, a licensed public educator. So I began to teach and train the next generation of chefs, but halfway through my tenure there, I was like, yo, this is a table too small for what I bring to it. So just as I left, I resigned, and I relaunched the business, and then just as I started cooking with gas, other tables in my life began to break. This was like a macho man flying elbow off the top rope. Failed business partnership, toxic relationships, betrayal, divorce. These tables talked to me, and they said, hey, go take a look at the onion. You know that thing you cook with all the time? Go look at it. So I leaned in a little bit like this. I said, this thing stinks and makes me want to cry. But as I leaned in, I saw an opportunity, and so they sent me out here first. So I don't know if that's a pat on the back or what, but I'm coming down here, and I got a few questions. So this is for everyone in the room. Raise your hand if y'all gonna participate. I'm gonna make y'all sure y'all are awake. Raise your hand if you know how to properly dice an onion. Raise your hand if you know how to properly dice an onion. I'm gonna go 33.5% on that one. All right, I need a brace. Oh, quick on your feet up front. Who wants to play the game? You look willing and able. So, do you know how to properly? No, that's the wrong question. What is your favorite onion dish?
I like stir fry.
Stir fry. She's gonna use some onions. Okay. And then someone on this side of the room. Last question. I know this guy. This is Robert. Robert, name 3 types of onions.
Red, green, and yellow.
That's a terrible answer. That's a terrible answer. But we'll take it. We'll take it. So here's the deal. Thank y'all so much. So here's the deal. I've cooked up something signature for you tonight. And a moose-bouche, a one bite. My 3P framework. Find your purpose, discover your passion, develop your potential. When you dice an onion properly, 33.5% of y'all know how to do it. You cut down, you cut into, and across. One more time again. You cut down, into, and across. 3 steps for my 3 Ps. Purpose, passion, and potential. If you're a college student or a young professional, if you catch this on the front end, you'll go further faster. To everyone else in the room, instead of barely getting by and paying the bills, you'll have created a life you love because your career fits you. Tonight, I'm telling you this. Do not quit your day job or start a side hustle, but do this one thing tonight. Build your own table. It is the sequence of events of our lives that act as the salt and pepper, the seasonings and spice for a great meal. Your very own dinner party. Okay? And here's what happens. When you build your own table, you get to become the head of that table. Now, if you don't like grass, I'm sorry, not sorry, but here's the deal. I grew up on it, and I'm a part-time fan. I'm able to admit it now. But here's what happens. You get to become the head of your own table. And then to quote a coach of mine, you can then develop the confidence and walk into a room and say, hey, I come with requirements. And oh, by the way, I'm worthy of accommodations. And now that you're the head, you get to sit down. Like you're sitting down tonight. You get to sit down at the head of your own table in a seat that is significant because it was made just for you and has your name on it. So tonight, do this one thing for me, for yourself, and for those that mean and matter something to you. Build your own table because the world needs what only you can bring to it. Thank y'all.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Rambling Man podcast. So this is presentation number 1, probably one of one. But the Rambling Man is a podcast where I take somebody knowledgeable on a topic, interview them, but the conversations go wherever. We can talk about Tinder, we can talk about whatever. That's how we go. Now the podcast usually lasts 2 to 3 hours, and I have 437 slides, so I hope everybody is comfortable, brought snacks, whatever you need to do. So fun fact, the longest episode was Frank Murphy at 4 hours and 39 minutes. So I have been playing poker with my dad and my uncles. Dad is out in the audience tonight, since I was 8 years old. And this is where I first learned about storytelling. I would hear stories about them growing up. I would hear about stories later on about them serving in Vietnam. And a lot of rambunctious stories that would end with Dad looking at me and going, "Don't tell your mom." So I started listening to podcasts in the early 2000s when it was mainly songs from KEXP, KCRW. The only long-form podcast I heard was Jeff Goldsmith's Creative Screenwriting podcast. So that's when I started learning, but the real genesis of it all came from the Central Collective. So I was sitting on the deck one night with Sean Pointner, Joachim Schmidt, and we talked about art for like 4 hours. And then the next night, we were sitting on the deck, Sean Pointner, Lance Dizek, and Lance was in the PhD program at UT for creative writing, and he was talking about, he's like, I think I'm gonna get into astronomy. I misheard him. I thought he said astrology. So for like 5 minutes, I was just thinking, why is he getting into astrology? I don't understand. And then I just told him that, and he said, that's funny. And for 20 minutes, we riffed about what it would be like to think that you were into astrology instead of astronomy. So the next day, I was like, I'm going to go buy the equipment because no one will hear them speak. No one will hear their story. I bought a Zoom H6 portable recorder, mics and cables, and because I knew there were tons of people out there that were not famous, that no one was going to get to hear their story out in the world. But here's the thing, I'm a jackass. In doing so, I abhor the sound of my own voice. This is very painful. And I knew the podcast needed to be about people, not me. And if you can see the photo, if anybody gets that reference, please see me afterwards. So the first episode was Aaron Donovan, Aaron, and I sweating out in front of Wild Love Bakehouse. She had just been to the Czech Republic and went mountain biking. So I got to hear about that story. We sat out there for, I think, 3 hours on the dot because we couldn't end at 2:50. She had to get to 3. And we talked about Tinder. We remote parented some children who were about to jump off the edge in that, but it was always in person. So again, the name of the podcast, Rambling Man, I have this, it's very loose. I started joking that I had or I have an editor named Kurt or Kirk. We're still not sure which one is his name. Again, if you get that reference, please see me afterwards. So pandemic hit. I couldn't record in person anymore. I had to pivot. And I had to change how I started interviewing people because it was a bunch of people I had no idea who they were and they knew nothing about me. So I had to change everything up. Cut to now. This April of this year, I hit 100,000 downloads. I've been doing a podcast for I only got 20 seconds, people. Let's go. I've been doing it 7 or 8 years. I just dropped episode 202 and hit 100,000. And I started thinking more about it once I crested that number. What was the best episode? I mean, no offense to those of you who raised your hands. You're all awesome. I'll give you hugs after this. But Gail Hinton was the best episode I've ever done. 2022. She has created over 40,000 murals across this country, and mainly in schools. She's in her 80s. I hate to tell on her, but she's in her 80s. She works 6-7 days a week. Still gets up on a scaffolding, takes no guff off no man. So she's my hero. Everyone has a story. The reason why these episodes are so long is because I feel like if you have interview questions, it feels combative. So the whole thing is to get people to feel more comfortable, and it usually takes time. One person I recorded with started out by saying, I'm not interested, we won't be here that long. Cut to 3.5 hours later to where we stopped, and I was like, you did 3.5 hours. You broke what you thought you would do. So mine is still audio only. I kind of feel like it's the best format for podcasting because a lot of the video ones, you're looking at what they're doing, you're getting ads from YouTube, and you're scrolling. You're second screening it the whole time, and we don't need that. You know, you listen to the podcast, it has a greater impact. I also learned to have standards, to learn how to know my worth. Not everyone has a story they're willing to tell, so they don't need to tell their story. And the side note one was during the pandemic, I had somebody I'd had on before, and I was like, hey, I'd like to get you back on to hear your take on what's going on. And they said, well, I'll give you 15 minutes. And I said, no, thank you. I won't, it's not interesting. Hitting 100,000 downloads, sorry, Dad, in 202 episodes, this rang true to me. Mark Bernard, the screenwriter, said, be humble, but let motherfuckers know. I've hit 100,000 downloads, 7 or 8 years, 202 episodes. I've got to start standing up for myself that I'm not doing this out of my basement. I do it in my living room. It's not in my basement. But thank anybody who listened. Thank you for listening. Mark Maron is ending his WTF podcast, and he's talking about it as a body of work, and it's kind of reshaped how I think about this. Oh yeah, one last thing. Rambleman Pod's where you can find us at Rambleman Pod. Follow us on everything. And, please pull out your phones and give me a 5-star review right now. I think you're
So I'm excited to share my story with you through something that really transformed my life and became a big part of it. Something we already heard from Chef Kevin, and it's food. And hopefully you can be inspired tonight and see food with different eyes. Maybe not. But food for me is many things. Food is beauty, is colors, is memory, is sharing, and community. Cooking is my happy place, what I do for the people I love, caring and nourishing them. But let's start from the beginning. This is me at 6 years old eating focaccia. And I bet many of you started baking during COVID, and I'm one of you. Food, in this case sourdough, was my teacher to face failure and learn resilience. I needed to get that focaccia right, and I did it. Food is nostalgia. This is me with my nonna. And I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Think about that food that takes you back to your childhood, that almost brings tears to your eyes. For me, it's her baked apples, and every time I make them, they take me straight to her kitchen. And if your food was grits, well, I can't blame you because I come from Milan, the city of polenta, which is the Italian grits. Milan is the city of cotoletta, of the Duomo Cathedral, of risotto, but also the capital of finance and fashion. And that's what Milan brought me in my 20s, my dream job in Giorgio Armani. I inherited here my sense of beauty and my creativity. And despite the fact that I miss my clothing allowance a lot, I'm a much happier person now that I do what I love, which is food and yoga. But I'm many things. I was born in the north and southern inside, not only because I love the food there, but mainly because of my excitement in hosting people, bringing people together and feed them. And that's something you have in the South. And I'm very excited to be in the South in the US too. Food is sharing, not only what's on the table, but sharing moments, laughs, stories, quality time together. Because around the table, we build our memories. And most of the time, I remember everything I eat, everywhere I go, but there are some moments where I don't. And this is one of them. That's the night that my husband Jace proposed to me in Puglia. And I cannot remember what I ate that night. But around the table, ordinary and extraordinary things happen. But life is not a bed of roses, and don't be scared for the next slide. But that's me taking an unpaid leave for my job, coming to check out Knoxville. I sent this picture to my best friend on New Year's Eve. At midnight, she was still at dessert, while I had a 5-minute stand-up dinner followed by bowling night. And the cultural shock hit me pretty hard. And I knew something had to change if I wanted to stay in Knoxville. So I went back to Milan, back to my job, and I signed up for a culinary school on the weekends. I wanted to bring some Italy to Knoxville and share what food was for me. I didn't want to become a professional chef, but I was curious to see where this path could take me. And at first, he reconnected me to my university friend, Elena. She's a very fun, entertaining person. And we started doing dinners in my one-bedroom apartment in Milan and teaching people to make risotto and tiramisu. And finally, I moved to Knoxville, and 3 months later, COVID happened. And yes, food saved me. I started doing Instagram lives with my family and friends in Italy, and I felt so much connected in such a difficult moment. And that evolved into online classes with people in Knoxville. Food brought me friends and started to build my community here. Food pushed me to step out of my comfort zone and jump into new adventures. And that's what happened with Osteria Stella, the Italian restaurant here in Knoxville. I share my family recipes and favorite dishes and ended up curating their menu for the first year. Food is a journey, and the pop-up dinners that we had were a beautiful way to take people of Knoxville through a culinary journey through the regions of Italy, making them discover new dishes that probably they never heard of. Sometimes I didn't even until I started cooking them. Food is fun. My main focus is pasta classes. Transforming eggs and flour into pasta is such a rewarding sensory experience, but also a social, interactive moment, a thing that I need very bad in my life. And unfortunately, the art of making fresh pasta is getting lost in Italy too. And this is my small contribution to try to keep it alive. And food is tradition. I want my daughter Leah to remember the moments we cooked pasta together, the same way I remember doing it with my grandma. And thanks to my daughter, I became friends with one person that is coming up, Kim. She's the owner of the Glowing Body and the yogi. And last year I asked her if she wanted to do something crazy. And she said yes, because she's as crazy as I am. Next year we're gonna have our third yoga retreat in Italy, in Puglia, in the same place where I got married. And it was a beautiful way to bring together yoga and food, because in the end, in both, you make people happy in their belly and in their soul. And food was such a central element of this week, because again, food has the power to create bonding, relationship, friendships. So food for me is many things. It's memories, it's learning. It's also what gave me a purpose here in Knoxville. What is food for you? I hope this weekend you can take some time to maybe prepare a meal with your friends, family, kids, and really sit down, put your phones away, be mindful, talk, be present, enjoy every bite you have, because you should also build your memories around the table. These little moments are what matters. Grazie. Grazie Marta, and happy birthday team.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Less than 15 minutes from here, in East Knox County, Holston River bison raises wild American bison on a 160-acre farm on the Holston River. We have 30 head, having started in November of 2022 with 10 bred heifers that I bought at an auction in South Dakota. It's a good story, but it's not one I chose to tell tonight. People want to know, why did you get in the bison business? Well, there are 3 possible tales. Those are good ones too, but I only have time to exaggerate on one of them. On a motorcycle trip out west years ago, I camped one night in Yellowstone, and after I'd put up my tent and settled in for the night, a bison the size of a parade float wandered into my sight to graze not more than 10 feet from me. In fact, that booger spent the entire night outside my tent. That was my sign that I had a special affinity with them. Realistically, I ranch bison due to very poor judgment and an unbridled interest in these magnificent animals. They are my portal to sane and sustainable living. By the way, you shouldn't do that. I have the scar to prove it. Now, if you were one of the lucky ones who watched the 2-part Ken Burns documentary on American bison on PBS, feel free to continue talking among yourselves quietly while I continue to share my topic with these others. At the peak, there were 60 million bison on the plains, forests, and deserts of North America. Some were right here, although it's generally accepted that the last bison in Tennessee was killed in 1823. The story of the bison is a bit complex to cover in a couple of sentences. Ironically, bison may have facilitated their own demise. Suffice it to say that eastern bison became a casualty of Western expansion and population growth as European visitors, settlers, pushed westward, employing the paths through the wilderness carved by these animals called buffalo traces. The massive herds of the Great Plains were decimated for their skins, useful in fashion and machine belting, and for their tongues, an Eastern culinary delicacy. Millions were also massacred to control native people by denying them their food, shelter, clothing, tools, and spirit guide. By the 1890s, there were fewer than 1,000 alive. Ironically, the Smithsonian realized that the bison were endangered and sent William Hornaday, its chief taxidermist, to Montana to collect specimens for an exhibit in full expectation of the bison's extinction. Hornaday eventually became an ardent conservationist and director of the Bronx Zoo, where he collected a bison herd of 40 animals. That herd in New York City became one of the main foundations for the reintroduction and restoration of our national mammal. That is why I'm here. Holston River bison is my modest effort to restore bison to the American landscape. However, there is much to do. Even today, there are just over 500,000 bison in the North American continent. Thankfully, growing demand for nutritious, sustainable bison meat incentivizes farmers to raise bison, ensuring the future of the species. People ask me, what do you do with yours? Well, in the spring, the young calves, called red dogs because of their size and color, are born. In that season, the benefit of the females is obvious. Bison mothers are loving and patient. Bulls, on the other hand, tend to spend their day play fighting, trying to mount each other, and generally being a nuisance. I've determined that the value of that behavior is better evaluated on a plate than in a pasture. In June, we passed stern judgment on our first 2 young bulls, which I'm currently selling, vacuum packed and flash frozen, if you're interested. Here's a statistic that I find remarkable. In 2023, about 85,000 bison were processed for meat consumption in the U.S. That annual number is less than the daily consumption of beef cattle. Finally, I'm asked about my favorite time of year. Calving season is fun, as previously stated, although this year was a little more difficult because I lost 3 calves and 1 cow. This made the 8 live calves we did have that much dearer. At the risk of overly romanticizing about something as mundane as being outside at night, my favorite memory is of one cold, snow-muffled dusk in January or February last. I'd been working that day and hadn't yet put out hay for the herd. In the advancing dark, I walked out to the hay barn, got the tractor and a round bale, and headed out across the snow in search of them. When I found them, they were clearly waiting on me, expectant, attentive, and as quiet as cigar store Indians. I dropped the bale and hopped down from the tractor to cut the strings so that they could eat. They watched. All was silent, all was still. It was solemn, almost holy. And I thought to myself, this is my best life. We're Holston River Bison. Thank you. Good night.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Mindy Wilson. I am a mom of 3, a lifelong educator, and the founder of Advo Kids in Xander's Place. My journey started in the classroom, but it's grown into something so much bigger. helping families navigate special education services with confidence and support. For 14 years, I taught in a variety of positions, but falling in love with the comprehensive developmental classroom. I loved my students, but we were constantly understaffed, overwhelmed, and asked to do the impossible with very little support. I realized I couldn't keep telling parents that their child was fully supported when I knew deep down we weren't following IEPs, which are individualized education plans, the way that they should be. I was told to stay in my lane, but that's not who I am. I had to speak up. AdvoKids was born out of frustration, but more importantly, out of passion. Every family deserves someone who understands the system and will stand by them so their child receives the best education possible. In just the 2024-2025 school year, I served 65 families across the state of Tennessee. And since the beginning of just this school year, 2025-2026, I've served at just a minimum of 15 families. Each story is unique, but the need is the same. The families want their child to be seen, supported, and given a chance to succeed. This just isn't the work for me, excuse me, it's my calling. These children deserve to learn, to be in a safe environment, and to be fully included. So I get to fight for that every day, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Our nonprofit sister business is Xander's Place, which connects families to community resources, offering personal support and creating a place where every family feels like they belong. At AdvoKids, we advocate, coach, and empower. So I sit at the table with these families in the IEP or 504 meetings, making sure that the school actually follows through on what's promised. We offer 3 levels of support: virtual advocacy, in-person advocacy, and coaching. Whether families need me physically at the meeting or just guidance behind the scenes, there is an option for every situation. In a little over a year, I have worked with 80 plus families, helping them navigate evaluations, suspensions, behavior plans, academic supports. These aren't just numbers, they're kids, and every win is life-changing. Parents walk into these meetings overwhelmed and outnumbered, but when an advocate shows up, the tone shifts. The conversations become more collaborative, professional, and informative. Parents feel supported, and the child gets more access to the resources, services, accommodations, and support. This just isn't about paperwork and policies. It's about connection. It's about educating parents on the process, coaching them to feel confident in their role, and knowing that their child isn't facing this alone. Families face denials, confusing processes, and sometimes flat-out resistance. Many feel like giving up. My role is to step in and guide them through and give them a voice at the table. Success isn't measured by test scores. It's when a child feels safe, included, and supported. It's when a parent leaves a meeting with hope instead of frustration. That's what we're working towards. The work isn't done. There are so many families out there that don't even know that don't even know advocacy exists, or who feel like they're fighting the battle alone. So we want to reach them. So partnerships are key. We collaborate with schools, attorneys, therapists, and nonprofits because it takes a community to support a child. Together, we are definitely stronger. Our vision is very simple. Families should never walk alone. From 3 through the age of 22, children's needs constantly change, and AdvoKids adapts with them through every season of their life. When a child gets the support they need at school, it changes everything. It changes their futures, it changes their family's future, and the entire community that they live in. This is personal. As a mom, as an educator, I can't sit back and let these families feel dismissed and ignored. I fight because every child matters, and every child deserves hope. And I'm going to give you a little pause because the next picture is going to be about my Xander, who's an actual kiddo. He's an 8th grader at Clinton Middle School. And Xander's family moved from North Carolina, and I was the one that helped them navigate the special education system. There he is at the very tippy top in 2nd grade. And there at the bottom, he's definitely now taller than me. But Xander's a real life kiddo. He's nonverbal, autistic child. And his family asked all the questions. Where do I take my child who needs dental work? Where do I take my nonverbal child that wants to participate in sports? So my ask is simple. We need to advocate, empower, and support. You can help our mission by sharing with your friends, following us and liking us on social media, and just spreading the word. With Xander Place, we have the ability to be able to provide advocacy services for families and children, but then also through advocates, we're able to attend those IEPs and 504s. And that's all I have.
So this is a trail of a photo of all the trails in the Smoky Mountains. There's 800 miles, and I hiked all of them last year. Joined the 900 Miler Club. So you might have heard 800, 900. What's the difference going on there? There used to be a lot more trails. Some of them have been shut down since the club was started, and I think they kept the name because you got to hike a way more anyway to join it. I learned about it in 2018. I was working in a newsroom, and I wrote this story about a man who joined the club. He actually had a free fall on him, and the doctor said he would never walk again. And then he did. He beat the odds, and he finished. I was like, wow, that is inspirational. Good for him. I could never do that. I had that mindset because I was kind of out of shape. I had a rough couple of years, kind of depressed. And the pandemic hit, and I started hiking outside, like over here at Elkmont, because it was a safe outdoor activity. I covered a lot of trails during that time, and I finally realized, like, oh, maybe I can do this too. So, fast forward to just going and hiking out here in Gaze Mountain Trail. I remember doing this hike, and I kind of called it my nature therapy at the time. And I was like, all right, I think I kind of processed everything I can on my own. I need to bring in the big guns. I need to talk to a therapist. So I hiked all the time, and I went back to this Wendy's parking lot after a hike and talked on the phone to the therapist a lot. Fast forward to December, this is when I finished it last year. My friends got together, we had a little party. They made a hiker tunnel with their hiking poles for me to walk through. It took me about 4.5 years and about 1,200 miles of hiking to do it. It was such a crazy journey, and it was so healing for me. I want you all to do it too. So if you do want to hike all 900, you can download the spreadsheet. It's got trails listed 2 ways. Things like Anthony Creek over here in purple have section miles because there's 3 sections there between trailheads. Things like Edmonds Falls is just one trail total shown there. And then start with something easy like this Kauai loop up here. Don't do anything long like Hazel Creek. That trail in yellow is 15 miles long. It's got a ton of water crossings. It's not easy to hike. You gotta hike a lot to even get there. Books like the Day Hiker's Guide are great for figuring out logistics. You can take shuttles, different types of shuttles. I'll do like a car shuttle, take a boat shuttle, drive a bike to get to a trailhead. There's lots of ways you can get around to different trailheads. A key swap is one where you trade cars before you hike and it goes to different ends of the trailhead. Meet up in the middle, trade back, that's a key swap. I also backpack a lot. It was a huge learning curve. I think my pack weighed like 40 pounds when I started. It's about half that now. You kind of learn what you need and what you don't need, and you end up buying lighter gear, which helps too. And it also helped me hike the trails a little more efficiently since I could just stay out there and hike them without rehiking a bunch of stuff. You can finish the map without backpacking, but there's some hikes you gotta do as day hikes that are over 20 miles long, which I know sounds really crazy, but once you get into it, it really isn't that bad. Having good community helps too. I joined this group on Facebook of other women trying to hike the trails, and we just have such good camaraderie. I love getting together with these gals. This is the most important takeaway for y'all though, the 10 essentials. Google it and learn what to pack. You might not plan to stay out in the woods overnight, but what if you do? You want to be prepared. I also always carry bear spray, a satellite SOS device, and hiking poles, since you can use them for self-defense, and as crutches. So a lot of rain can get really scary quick. This is me and my partner hiking LeConte one time during a tropical storm. We hiked through miles of ankle-deep water on the trail. That was Grotto Falls on the left, going up, barely a trickle. On the right, it's a giant monsoon. It was crazy. It was like the very definition of type 2 fun. Wasn't at all fun in the moment, but now it's a fun story to think back on. So if you're gonna hike anything that goes through water, go online and check the Little River Gauge. That's generally a safe benchmark for the whole Smokies. If it's under 2 feet, things are usually safe. I learned this the hard way when I didn't check the gauge. I hiked 8 miles and had to turn around because the creek was raging and I couldn't cross it. And I didn't have my hiking poles either. Luckily I had them on this next hike though. I had to use them as crutches to hike 5 miles out because I was running from Yellow Jackets and I slipped off the trail and tore my calf. I also got stung about 20 times. See the little heart-shaped sting over there? It's such a sweet memory. I wore a book for about 3 weeks, and when it came off, I also found out I had a waterborne illness called Giardia. Also take a water filter, by the way. Now, hogs are the wild cards of the Smokies. I'm more afraid of them than I am bears. This is a foggy day on Lumber Ridge Trail, and I ran in the corner, and boom, there are the hogs. One of them charged at me, but thankfully it was just a bluff charge. I've seen a lot more of them over the years, and I found these hog traps over here too, around the Smokies in different places. If you see a bear, it's probably going to be running away from you. But if not, make yourself big. Don't turn your back to it ever. Use your rocks and bear spray if you need to. I ran into a mama bear and her cubs one time on trail. And we backed away slowly, hoping they'd mosey on. 30 minutes later, still there. I just turned around and came back and hiked that trail another day. Now on to snakes and ticks. Always wear repellent in the Smokies. There are ticks everywhere in the summertime. And don't worry about snakes. They don't want to see you either. Rattlesnakes are even nice enough to give you a warning. They rattle. You can use your hiking poles to fill around rocks and logs and tall grass. But of all the things to be afraid of in the Smokies, rough grouse. Those things have scared me the most, repeatedly. I can't tell you how many times those stupid birds have waited until I'm right next to them, and they pop up like a bat out of hell and give me a heart attack. They're completely harmless, but it would be really nice if they would quit doing that. Just saying. Anyway, look at all these big views you get as reward for hiking. You've got Charlie's Bunyan, LeConte at sunrise, climbing Rocky Top, Lonesome Pine. When I get to these spots, I just like to stop and have a snack and take it all in. It's just, I found some new favorites on this journey I would have never known about if I hadn't gone out to hike them all. Like Cataloochee, it's a great spot. And places like Shucksat at sunset, that's been my favorite of memories from this whole journey. I'm not saying the Smokies fixed me, but they were a huge part of the equation. I feel so much better than I did a decade ago, and I feel like I'm in a great headspace. And I just want all y'all to go out and enjoy the benefits of going outside too. So if you think you want to do this, come talk to me. I love talking trail logistics, and yeah, thank you all.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, I would like to hear that countdown en español. A ver. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gracias, mi gente. And I'm here tonight because I would like to share with you all about Latina's time, but I can do it without telling an important part of the story of my life. So I'm Raquel Noemí Leal Rojas from Valencia, Venezuela. It wasn't planned that back in 2017, because of the current crisis in my country, I fled my beautiful Venezuela with my family and came to the United States, straight to Lenore City, Tennessee. Don't ask why. I'm a Venezuelan attorney, so starting over felt like walking barefoot on unfamiliar ground. I needed to reinvent myself. I didn't know what would happen in our new journey, but I knew we had to not just to survive, but thrive. And even though I knew a little bit of basic English, I was too slow to understand, slow to answer, or too formal. What do you do for a living? Instead of, where do you work? So I translated everything in my head and to speak minutes later, so I couldn't express my full self. I felt like I was cut off of my roots and replanted, and that is a painful process. I miss everything that made me feel whole. My familia, my favorite food, my rhythms. I miss hearing Spanish all around me, and I missed home. And most people only saw me as a hardworking Latina doing manual labor. I was grateful for the jobs, cleaning houses and painting decks. But I'm una tipa chapalante, a trailblazing badass. Not just with my hands and muscles, but with my mind, my passion, and my voice. Until one day, my first bloom arrived. Someone truly saw who I am and my worth. I got a job at the YWCA as a cultural specific victim advocate because of my knowledge. For the first time, my Espanol was not a barrier. It opened the door. But most people have no idea how hard it is for immigrants to learn English, in Southern English, and adapting to a new and different culture. I was doing everything I could to speak without my accent, and I look more like the North Americans around me. I was so tired. So I gave myself permission to dream in Spanglish and let her speak in Espanol is a proof of that. Catherine Port saw me and gave me the opportunity to co-organize with her and her community a wonderful event where 50 Latinas, Spanish speakers, attended. I understood that my accent and culture are my flower's fragrance. Yes, sometimes I sound like Sofia Vergara when I speak English, and you know what? I love it. Because my accent is not a flaw. It's a reminder of who I am and where I come from. And I'm now experiencing a bilingual flourishing. I embrace my uniqueness and my reinvention to grow, to heal, and to be my best self. But it wasn't the case in 2018. I was homesick and I needed to share more time with women who understood me. So when I started to heal my immigration grief, I didn't want to do it alone because I knew more Latinas were carrying similar stories and I wanted to see them too. I wanted to create a platform and set the table for us to grow together in Spanglish. So I founded Latinas Time, a garden for Latinas to bloom together. Latinas Time is our table where we can sit together to reflect, to dream and rise. It's a community where we feel seen, supported and celebrated in Espanol. So that's our space to connect, a place where we share information and resources. We celebrate and cry together. We uplift Latina entrepreneurs and business owners and hold each other in prayer because no one blooms alone and we were never meant to. It's been a challenging journey and some of you know that starting a nonprofit is not easy. I registered Latinas Time as a non-for-profit in 2024 and now I'm navigating all the legal steps. It's challenging because it's not the same as doing this in Venezuela. But I'm grateful for all the people giving me advice, especially during this time. My vision has evolved many times because empowering Latina women is such an expensive mission. But I dream of growing an organization that goes beyond simply bringing Latinas together to have fun, dance, and support each other. I want to equip Latinas for rewarding and better paying jobs in leadership roles and board positions. I want to support them in pursuing higher education and to grow their businesses, and more importantly, inspire them to dream big and reach high no matter where they are planted. Because when a woman moves forward and flourishes, her family flourishes and her community thrives. Growth is contagious. The more we grow, the more everyone around us grows and succeeds too. Not just surviving, but thriving together. Now I know I was just planted in a soil that didn't know how to hold me like another Latinas in our community. So I built our own garden to flourish loud, colorful, and tropicaliciosamente. That's my word. East Tennessee is now my new soil. It's our new soil, Latinas, who are here tonight. I've blown in unfamiliar ground. My roots are deep. My voice is loud. My dreams are bilingual, and this is just the beginning. I am a plant who refuses to die. Gracias very much.
Five, four, three, two, one.
All right, everybody, first things first, I want you to think about your deepest musical guilty pleasure. This could be a concert you don't tell people you went to, maybe it's an album you hide in the glove box, maybe a deep-seated ska phase that never really left from college. Whatever it is, I want you to think what you're ashamed to admit you love, and I want you to think about it, okay? My name is Andy Benson. I am a proud East Tennessean, born and raised in South Knoxville, but I've been in Old North for about a decade. I am a mediocre disc golfer, a fallen from grace theater kid. I'm pretty fond of saying go Vols, but most importantly for tonight, I really love rock and roll. In fact, I've given a lot of my life to showing it off to the world. I'm the creative director of music and events for Lock and Key right here in Knoxville, and I cover music for a living. While we produce all sorts of work across the board, my pocket has always been music, and I spend a good chunk of my year helping to be a visual voice for some of the biggest and loudest shows in the country. Over at Lock and Key, we really love festivals. This year alone as a company, we're going to work on a little over 30 events across the country in all sorts of marketing capacities. We work with some of the biggest names in the game, like Bonnaroo, Austin City Limits, and Lollapalooza, as well as a lot of regional gyms like Big Ears, Bristol Rhythm and Roots, and Southern Skies right here in our backyard. In fact, at some point this year, I'm going to pass 200 festivals I've either worked or attended in my 33 years here on Earth. And it all revolves around one single thing, and that's fandom. People love gathering and celebrating the things that they cherish in a way that feels larger than everyday life. And all the time, I have people come up to me and say, wow, that must be the coolest job. And honestly, yes, it is. It's a really cool job. I've spent an awful lot of time around songwriters that I adore. I've gotten to see artists I grew up listening to on the radio, even some bona fide rock legends. One time I got paid to see Outkast, and that's crazy. But after a while, the adrenaline can die down when it just becomes another day in the office. But there's one thing that never gets old for me, and that's the front row. I've realized the last few years that even if I can't stand the music that's playing on stage, seeing somebody up close and personal with their favorite artist is such a joyful event, and getting to be a small part of that experience is really invigorating. And it's not just music. If you live here in Knoxville, there is a built-in pulse of fandom that runs through this city in a palpable, experienceable, day-to-day fashion. This was a down year. We went 3-7. That's crazy. And if there's one particular thing I love about us, it's that we are crazy. We instinctively know what it means to be a fan of something and support it with every bit of our blood, sweat, and tears. And I think that feeling's in my blood. No true Tennessee fan is ashamed of a feral nature. In fact, the night that those bad boys came down, I think every grandma in East Tennessee was talking about how cool it was in church the next day. Last summer, I had the opportunity to get to roll around North America with a rapidly rising singer-songwriter named Noah Kahan. It was my almost famous moment. I was suddenly in a very tight orbit with a team that was playing about 20,000 people a night on the road. But I didn't get into that gig knowing Noah's music all that well, outside of the big radio hit that plays in every target on the planet. Those weeks galvanized my appreciation for fanning out to a whole new level. Not knowing the music was a blessing because I fell in love with it through the eyes of 100,000 people that already did. I'm never going to forget Noah playing a special request for a fan who had lost their brother 2 months before when he was supposed to be at that show. It helped me remember that grief is steeped in celebration. I can actually pin down one particular moment where my love of fandom fully crystallized, and of all places, that was on Chris Jericho's Rock and Wrestling Rager at Sea. That's 4 nights of non-stop wrestling on a boat in the middle of the ocean. That boat smelled crazy. But on the boat, I briefly interviewed a man named John. John was very socially awkward. He told us he didn't have any friends outside of the internet wrestling fandom. He lived quietly with his parents in Pennsylvania, and society just didn't really embrace John. But when we asked him why he kept coming back year after year for this boat, he said it was the only 4 days a year that he felt normal and understood. And I think about that on a weekly basis. I first embraced the love of music specifically thanks to a foundation laid down by my parents. My mom's always been a huge music fan, and my dad was an insatiable music nerd who loved to be challenged by sound, and for a while was even the world's least charismatic lead guitarist in an 80s new wave band. And if there's one artist that they absolutely burned into my life, it's Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Ever since I was a child, my parents had tattooed that songbook onto my soul. Thunder Road is still my go-to karaoke jam at Marie's, and no one ever cares, and I sing that puppy like I'm about to be shot out back every single time. So all that actually came crashing together last year when I found out that along with Noah Kahn, Bruce Springsteen was going to be headlining the See Here Now Festival in Asbury Park, New Jersey, on the beach in his hometown, and I was going to get to film it front and center. That same starstruck feeling from my first few years of my career just came flooding back into me. But I'll be honest, the show was a little hard for me too. We actually lost Dad unexpectedly exactly a year before this show. My musical muse disappeared overnight. My favorite moment of every festival, I used to be calling him to give him the highlights and the lowlights of every weekend, and I never really got to do that with Bruce. I never worked the show until he was gone. But remember, grief is steeped in celebration. So when that night finally came, I got to live out the fandom that he helped manifest in me to the fullest extent. See me down there? I got to help work for my all-timer that night, and after I got the few shots that I needed, I put my camera down in the sand, I sobbed for 3 songs, and I danced for strangers until the lights came on. I think the thrill of being a human is getting to love things while you're here. So next time you want to belt Creed in the shower, I hope you do it with arms wide open. If you hated on a friend for putting down money to go to the Eras Tour, it's you. Hi, you are the problem. It's you. Do not, and I can't stress this enough, stop believing. Whatever it is that makes you happy, I want you to love it with reckless abandon, because I think that unbridled fandom helps make this world a lot better place. So now I want you to take that guilty pleasure from earlier, I want to get it in your scopes, and I just want you to fully embrace it. Because whatever it is, I got 2 words for you. Hell yeah.